Hello, dear Celta YouTuber. It is I, Fergus, yet again with some more useful tips on all things Celta related. In this video, I'm going to be talking about TEFL, TESOL, Celta, whatever you want to call it. What's the difference in these courses and what's the right one for you to take? And then what lies beyond in case you want to get more qualifications. So I've just put together some slides. And so this is what we're going to talk about. As I said, what's the difference and which one should you take? So the different types of courses, first of all, there's just this TEFL, a TEFL training course, and one which is not the Celta. So there's myriad of these courses that you can find out there online, or sometimes they're offered in-house. Maybe you found yourself working at a school in a new country or in the country where you're living, and that school offers a TEFL course. Now, there's lots of conflicting opinion out there on these courses, and as well there should be, really, because while you may find an absolutely fantastic course, you may also find a course which is not so great. So some things to look out for on one of these TEFL courses. TEFL, by the way, Teaching English as a Foreign Language. It's a general acronym and not owned by any one institution. But some things you should look out for will be how much input. That basically means how much teaching from a tutor such as myself will you receive on the course. You want to be getting something like about 100 hours. 100 to 120 hours would be ideal. You also want to be looking for things like what topics are covered. Is there aspects of teaching skills, teaching language systems, grammar, vocabulary, functional language pronunciation? What do they do in terms of methods and approaches? Do they teach their own method, or do they teach their own approach? Or do they base it off the communicative approach, which is the approach which underpins the Celta course? You probably also want to find out, do they do evaluated teaching practice? So this is where you will teach some real students and a tutor will watch you, evaluate you, and give you feedback on your teaching. Another good thing to ask about these courses is, do you receive certification? Is the certification accredited by anybody, or is it just accredited by the school or institution themselves? Now, if it is just accredited by the school or institution itself, this is not necessarily fatal. It may be just a way for them to provide the course to you at a cheaper price. The thing about accreditation, though, is recognition. So as school or an institution which doesn't have national or international recognition may not, but doesn't necessarily preclude, but it may not carry as much weight as an internationally recognized certificate. So it's hard to say that TEFL courses are not worth doing. But it's also hard to say that they're all just the right option. Some reasons why you might want to do it is because your school is recommending that you do it, or maybe cost is a factor. But I definitely, try to take some advice, look for some reviews online if you're considering doing one of these courses, and look at those things. Like I said, does it have at least 100 hours, ideally 120 hours? Does it cover core topics and areas of teaching? And does it include a teaching practice? These components would be minimums. There would be others as well to consider, which we will deal with now when I go back to when we talk about why many of you have probably searched for this, which is Celta or Cert TESOL. The Cert TESOL, I'll just put both there so you can see me and the presentation. Cert TESOL, this is the Trinity Cert TESOL. which you may have come across on your internet searches. So Celta is a course which is accredited by the University of Cambridge ESOL department, so for English for speakers of other language. So clearly with the Cambridge accreditation, this carries a lot of instant worldwide recognition. You would be very hard pushed to find a school which doesn't, an English language teaching school, I should say, which doesn't recognize Celta, given its Cambridge backing. I would say the same really goes for the Cert TESOL. Really the difference, in my own perception, I have previously worked as a Trinity Cert TESOL trainer as well in my days working in Brazil. The difference really is one of market share. So it's kind of like Pepsi and Coke in a way. They really do extremely similar things. It's the Trinity Cert TESOL does have a slightly different approach to how it does its assessment, and its syllabus is laid out somewhat differently. However, it still does cover those core aspects of teacher training course. You are going to have about 120 hours of input on both Celta and the Trinity Cert TESOL. You are going to have 6 hours of teaching practice minimum. It might be more now on the Trinity course, but 6 hours at a minimum of observed teaching practice, which you are evaluated on. Both courses as well come with assignments. I know that Celta has 4 assignments. Trinity may have more assignments, but they both cover more or less the same aspects of teaching. So teaching language systems, so grammar, lexis, functional language, pronunciation, teaching skills, reading, writing, speaking, listening, thinking about learner motivations and learning styles, to use a term which is not so in vogue. So both of these courses really do the same thing. As I say, it's really, Celta is the most well-known. However, most schools worth their salt will have heard of the Trinity Cert TESOL. So, if it's a case that where you're located, the Trinity Cert is offered and the Celta isn't offered, I wouldn't go out of my way to go and do the Celta. I just do the Trinity course. Or maybe it might be a question of cost. Maybe you might find that the Celta is slightly cheaper, or maybe it's slightly more expensive. It really depends on location and where it's been offered. But for your own purposes, I'd look at questions like convenience and cost when deciding between the two, because they really do the same thing. And while Celta it does qualify more real numbers of teachers, the Trinity Cert TESOL will serve you just as well. And having been a trainer on both courses, I can really speak to the standards of both absolutely high. They're externally moderated as well, which ensures that the standards are the same across the board. And external moderation means that it's not just me, the tutor, it's not just my feeling on the assessment, but I have to justify my feelings, I have to justify my assessment to an external moderator from Cambridge or Trinity to ensure that standards are maintained throughout the world. So the Cert TESOL or the Celta, really take whichever one works best for you. Okay, then, so once you've done your Cert or your Celta, The next thing to think about then would be Delta or the dip TESOL. And the dip TESOL is, or TESOL, it is, again, the Trinity version. And so, reasons for doing this course would be, to take your career to the next step. I personally, I did the Delta. My reasons for doing the Delta was because I was interested in becoming a teacher trainer, and I wanted to become a director of studies, and I wanted to progress my career in the world of English language teaching. And Delta really does open up those doors for you. It's not restrained to just teacher training or academic management. You might just want to stay in teaching, but you might want to be just a more confident teacher. You might want to have a deeper understanding of the methods and approaches and techniques that you use as a teacher. You may want to expand your repertoire, and you may want to just generally improve. On paper, the Delta actually does have the same level as Masters. However, it's not, strictly speaking, a Masters, because it has more of a practical focus than a Master's. So that's really the difference. It's more applied and practically focused than a Master's. So, if your plan is to continue teaching, or if your plan is to get into teacher training, or if your plan is to get into academic management, Delta is a great thing to consider. You really should think before you go to do Delta or the DIP TESOL, you want to give yourself ideally about 2 years of experience after completing your Celta before you start to do Delta. Now, people have done it sooner. People have done it in less than 2 years post Celta experience, and people have been very successful in that regard. However, one of the reasons why I say you should give yourself this experience is because a lot of the tasks on Delta ask you to reflect on your experience as a teacher. And sure, if you just teach for a couple of months, you'll have some experiences to reflect on. But if you teach, for example, a B1 or an intermediate level class for 2 months, you'll have some sense of what that level is like, typical errors, techniques that you can use to help those learners improve. But if you do it for 2 years, you'll have a really, really strong understanding, and you'll really see how the techniques and methods and approaches that you're being equipped with on Delta really kind of lock into place, and you can see how they help improve those learners. And then beyond that as well, thinking about teacher training, you'll be able to have that real deep appreciation of why eliciting is useful, and how to do it effectively, and how to ask concept checking questions. You'll have, for example, a really deep appreciation and understanding of that, which will therefore then help you to become an effective teacher trainer, or as I mentioned before, work as an academic manager. And a lot of academic management or director of studies work requires being able to mentor your teaching staff and provide them with not only the resources to help them progress themselves, but, as I said, mentor them, guide them, give them advice, offer solutions for myriad teaching situations which you will be met with on a daily basis as a director of studies or academic manager. So moving on from there, then there's a variety of what we can call ESP courses. So, for example, one ESP course is called a Certificate in International Business English Training, or the CERT IBET in Business English. Teachers of business English delivering lessons in language schools or in companies can learn a lot from the CERT IBET course. It's available online, in schools, or a blended course, and is designed to help you develop as a professional business English provider. And some courses have very recognized trainers in this field, which you could really benefit from. It isn't as popular, obviously, as the Celta or the Delta, and so these courses, they're limited. They're hard to find, them being offered. Also, it isn't as well known, but it's certainly worth considering after Celta if you want to work in business English. And, business English, especially when you go and teach abroad, and when I say teach abroad, I mean teach in a country where English isn't the first language that's spoken. So in my case, I taught abroad in France and Spain and Brazil and countries like this. English wasn't the first language. And you'll find that a lot of the classes that you'll find yourself teaching will be called, sometimes they're called something like in company, where you'll go to a bank, or you'll go to a software company, or you'll go to whatever it may be, and you'll teach some of the employees there for 45 minutes or an hour and a half or whatever the time period is. And so a lot of those classes will be just general English. They just want to maintain their English, not just for doing business meetings, but they want to just maintain it as a skill that they have for, business isn't only talking about spreadsheets and technical matters. It's also relationships as well. So they need general English. However, having a sense of what the difference between ESP, English for specific purposes, and general English is, and how to, teach a class which is heavily laden with jargon, with technical terms, which may not be technical terms that you work with on a day-to-day, but you'll be able to find ways to teach that effectively. A course like the Certificate in International Business English Training might be something that would be useful for you in that regard. So moving on then, MA in TESOL or TEFL. So, any teacher looking to move into academia will probably need to think about an MA, a master's. And, there is so many of these courses that you can do online. There are weekend versions, there are face-to-face, on-site courses, and these deal with TEFL teaching, and it's a broadening area. It's definitely expanding. And where previously only an MA in linguistics or maybe even applied linguistics were available, now you can choose from a lot of MAs we see these days that focus on technology and teaching and things like material development. I myself work a lot with instructional design. So I develop areas of e-learning and online teaching materials, etc. So you'll find lots of MAs that deal with these things. Also, there are students with bachelors and MAs from countries that are not recognized in Europe or such countries. Also look at the ranking of the university you wish to attend and the faculty. With an increasing number of these online MA courses, you can access good quality education for anywhere. But a big thing about MAs is, they usually come at a price. They're usually pretty pricey. And that's kind of like, following this list of different courses that I'm pointing out here. Well, actually, no, it's just over there if I point in the right direction. They do go in ascending order of cost. A TEFL course is going to be the cheaper one. Celta and TESOL a little bit more expensive. Delta, Dip, they're going to be yet more, maybe about twice as expensive. The ESP courses, you can kind of put them in a side category. They could be more expensive. They're usually kind of like a add-on course, so they might be a little bit less expensive. But then when you start to get into MA courses, that's where it's going to start getting really expensive. So after the MA TESOL, then some people who are really into it might consider doing a PhD. And, it's a top qualification for most people is a PhD. This is where you'll select a focus, an area, and you'll do some really intense research on it. And, the end result of a PhD is really, it's often a book or a publication. It usually takes a few years, often 4 to 6 years, and you'll be focusing on a really specific area. If the outcomes after doing a PhD, you're not going to do a PhD if you want to teach general English at a local English language school, an international house, for example. You'll do a PhD, if you want to get into research, if you want to work in a university teaching English for academic purposes, but even your master's would probably be enough for that. If you want to get into academics, as I said, doing research, writing papers, etc., these would be the reasons for doing a PhD. Extrinsically, I guess I could say that those reasons are, obviously there's personal reasons. You might have a real passion for an area of teaching and you want to really take a deep dive into it, and a PhD would definitely provide an avenue there. It's by no means necessary. Sometimes, kind of, there can be something limiting about a PhD in the sense that it's narrowing, of course, narrowing means that you become extremely focused and you know everything there is to know about that at one point, and that's been kind of like, I guess, the way that we've organized academia over, I guess, centuries now at this stage. So it has its pros and cons, but it's, I just include it there as it's kind of like, as we all know, a PhD is often kind of like the final kind of like the highest level of academic qualification that you can achieve. So that's it. That's it for this video. Just thank you for watching. As always, I hope that you found this in some way useful and insightful, and that it helps you get a bit more clarity on deciding which course is best for you and your way forward. My own recommendation is, go for a Celta course. Like, I've been the trainer of I've been a trainer for many years now. I think it's an excellent course. As I mentioned, the Trinity options are great as well. There are some really great TEFL courses out there. There are some not so great TEFL courses. They usually come at a cheaper price. So really just exercise your discretion. Do research. Reach out to people who've done those courses already. If you know a tutor, maybe even pop a comment down below in this video. I'll be happy to respond, have a look at a TEFL course and give you my own sense of what I think. Of course, I wouldn't tell anybody finally what to do, but I'd be certainly happy to give my opinion on a TEFL course. So please do drop a comment below if you're considering doing a TEFL course, or if you have done a TEFL course, what was your experience? If you're watching this, have you done Celta? Are you doing Celta? Have you done Trinity? Are you thinking about doing Trinity? Would you agree with my path as well that I pointed out there? Would you say that is the natural trajectory of an English language teaching professional? Okay, that's it for this video. Please, as usual, hit that subscribe, the like, the bell, leave a comment, all of that good stuff that us YouTubers always love viewers to do if they can do. And once again, thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye for now.